All right, joining us now, she's one of the greatest players ever in the history of softball, a two-time National Player of the Year, a national champion, the first ever four-time All-American in Oklahoma, which is saying something. She's played of course, on the U.S. national team. She's played professionally, and now she's in the coaching. She's the newest pitching coach at Pacific. We speak of someone that we haven't had on in a while, Keilani Ricketts, now known as Keilani Ricketts Tumanuvao. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's talk about first that big chapter of yours now. New pitching coach at Pacific. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I think just my life in general the past few years is just it's been taking a shift. And so I didn't really think I wanted to get into college coaching in the first place. And so I had my volunteer stints at Mississippi State and OU in the past, but I think it was just with my life, I was just so busy with softball. When I was going to play in Japan, I was playing on USA, I was playing pro here. And so having to add like that the whole coaching thing to it, it seemed like I was like, no, coaching is not for me. And so um I guess just with my daughter, I having a daughter 2 years ago in 2022, and just after the Olympics, my life definitely slowed down a bit softball wise. And so I'm still playing professionally with the Oklahoma City Spark, and I think this is when I really started to realize, maybe coaching, I can get into coaching. And so last year I got to coach with Jim Gasso at Mid America Christian University in Oklahoma City, and I loved it. Loved the girls, loved the program, and the opportunity that Coach, we call him Coach Gasso, that coach, Mr. Coach Gasso gave me. And so I think just with my daughter and being far from home in Oklahoma, I loved Oklahoma so much. We loved being able to build our family out there. But just having a daughter and coaching, it felt like we wanted to be closer to family. And so I always kind of had in the back of my mind, University of Pacific, just like if I ever got that opportunity, that would be an ideal situation. Just moving closer to home, but not too much into the Bay Area. And it's close to my in-laws. They're about 30 minutes away. And so I always thought of that in the back of my mind. And then when Brian Colsey retired and Sam Duran Kukut got the job, she called me up, and she got my number through Ali Carta. They're good friends. And the softball world is just so small. With Ali Carta, I'm really good friends with her wife, Kelly Kretschman. And so she reached out to me through Ali Carta, and she asked if I was interested. And I said, yeah, I mean, I didn't think it would come this soon, but yes, I am interested. And so I really enjoyed my conversations with her. I really enjoyed hearing Sam's just her passion for wanting to be a head coach, wanting to grow this program and build off of what Brian Colsey has built. And, it excited me for wanting to get deeper into coaching. I tried that. So this past year I was coaching in the NAIA, and I felt like it was a good balance for me with having a little toddler, having to still train and play professional softball. And, Sam, what she said that she wanted me to continue to play. And so I felt like, let's go ahead and try this. It's going to be easier being closer to family to be able to balance that out. And so yeah, we're living here in Modesto, about 30 minutes from University of Pacific. It's close to family. They've been such a help so far. It's been great. And yeah, just getting into the realm of things with fall ball and individuals and all of that stuff right now.
Well, first of all, congrats being a mom. That's pretty awesome. There, that's I did not know that. So, congrats on that. That's a game changer, and for so many reasons, right? That you have a different perspective as a person once you become a mom.
Oh, absolutely. All your priorities totally change. And so it's been such a blessing. And, with me in my playing career too, I've played with Oklahoma City Spark this past 2 years, and I played with Athletes Unlimited in the AUX edition this past summer. And so, I think just with my priorities have always been with me as a player when I'm looking at contracts and looking at this, how the season's going to go. And my priority is just like, okay, how am I going to make it work with childcare? How am I going to make it work with my daughter in season and being able to balance that with playing? And so, it's been great. She's She's amazing. She loves being around softball players. I kept saying, I'm like, she's not going to be a softball player. She's going to be volleyball or basketball. That's it. But she's obsessed with softball already. She's always wanting to go to the softball field. She always is asking about like she wants to be around softball players. So yeah, she loves being around the girls.
It's in the blood. Yeah, yeah, it's in the
It
genes.
is.
What are
Yeah,
you gonna
can't
do
keep her
there?
away from it. She is
Uh,
going to be a righty though, so I'm a little bummed with that. We got her a
oh.
lefty glove, but I'm gonna make I'm gonna try to make her a lefty swing. She's got a strong lefty swing so far, but she keeps trying to put it over on her right shoulder. So we'll see how that turns out.
Ooh, an interesting balance to that. Maybe she could do both, righty and lefty. Who never know,
Yeah,
you know?
we might need to try that.
Um, so you mentioned obviously you've been playing professionally. How does this job, does that affect your future as far as playing with the OKC Spark or just playing in general, being the assistant at Pacific? Excuse me.
Yeah, I know like that was one thing that Coach Sam, she knew I was playing and she says that she really does she thinks it's a good recruiting tool and she wants me to continue to play and she doesn't want this job to be able to stop me. And so um yeah, I mean for me it's as I'm getting older, I really don't know how much longer I'm gonna play. I just keep taking it year by year. And so but as for right now, she is supportive of me to continue to play.
And that is a kind of a promoting tool there. If they see you playing, like, hey, I could play for her if I was a pitcher, that'd be pretty exciting
Yeah, and
recruiting deal
it's
there.
great. I mean, so far the conversations have been great with the girls just because, being out on the West Coast, there's no professional softball teams out there. And so they've had so many questions and they love just to be able to like ask about the pro league and I'm able to, help grow at that level too.
No, that's pretty significant from that standpoint. Because I remember, and I think we talked before we recorded. We spoke in person in Clearwater. We just go back to the inaugural ESPN Clearwater tournament when Oklahoma was there. You were on the staff and a
Hmm.
volunteer. And I remember I asked you if you wanted to get into coaching full time. You're like you weren't sure because you're focused on playing at the time. Certainly the Olympics were on the horizon and everything like that. Uh, when did your sister Samantha obviously has been successful as a head coach at Mississippi State? She told me she's teased you about getting into coaching and things like that. So what were you trying to avoid being a coach as you were growing up? That it just kind of was something like I just want to focus on playing. Take me through that process as you started playing collegiately, and because I'm sure Coach Patty Gasso and is thinking, hey, you should be a coach and this or that. So take me through that process as, ooh, I don't know if I want to be a coach right now because I want to play and balancing all those decisions.
Yeah, I think I was just, especially right out of graduating OU, I signed my first pro contract the next day after the World Series. And so I signed my contract to go play in Japan. And I just, I think because I was so wrapped up in pro softball and, I was doing pro softball so heavily from 2013 until 2018 and that's when I stopped playing in Japan. So I could really focus on USA. And that's when I ended up getting into being a volunteer coach at OU. I think I was just so heavily in playing professionally and with USA until I had my baby. And so I think, that was just kind of my priority. And I was just focused on being a pro softball player. And so I started giving lessons a little bit when I came to OU as a volunteer coach. And so I started getting into lessons and I was doing lessons for high school girls, college girls, all ages. And I think that's when I started to like realize like, okay, like I do enjoy this. I do enjoy being able to be a coach and being able to use my experiences to help these girls out. And I think that's my biggest thing right now. That I think that's one of my biggest strengths is I'm able to connect to these girls. And I tell our staff like I've been in your shoes. I've been the first string pitcher. I've been the fourth string pitcher. I've been the middle relief, the closer. I've had to work my way up, and so, or I've even had to been like the workhorse of the team. So I've been in all those different experiences. I've had the successes, but I've had plenty of the failures. And so I feel like I could use that to, help them in that way. And so I do enjoy being able to find a way to relate to each one of the pitchers on the staff. It doesn't matter what their role is.
I wanted to, expand on that. You could be a podcast host because you were thinking exactly what I was going to ask you there
Yeah.
on the topic. Because I've always heard, and I've talked to so many great players that have gotten into coaching, and the biggest adjustment I've heard and challenge is understanding that when you inherit, in your case, for example, pitchers, they may not be able to do things that you can do. And so that you have to not only relate to that player, but know what their strengths and weaknesses are and adapt to what they can do so you can bring the most out of them instead of, hey, do this like how I did it, because not many could do what you did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. And we have those talks. And I think, sometimes the first thing out of the girls' mouths when they see me, they're like, I want to learn like a curve drop like yours. Like I want to work on that a little bit more. And so, I mean, obviously, like with me being a drop ball pitcher, like well, like, and if girls don't have a drop ball, like I'll be teaching that and I start getting into that stuff. But I mean, I don't want to make them a cookie cutter into what I am because I mean, in reality, like we're all built differently. We all have different foundations in our mechanics and stuff. And so like we're some pitchers, they're going to be a drop ball pitcher, some are going to be a rise ball pitcher. And we're just going to have to figure out how to balance them out with the staff. And so if we could teach the rise ball pitcher a drop ball just to kind of balance things out, that's great. But I don't want to try to make them a cookie cutter of me because it doesn't work that way, I guess. And so even like with my changeup, I know that's one of the biggest things that like with how I throw my changeup, I honestly don't even know how I throw my changeup. The way my pitching coach taught me, it's I don't do it the way he taught me. And so and he knows that too. And it's like we've talked about it. And so like I with the pitchers, like sometimes we'll work on different changeups. I know how to work with other changeups, but the way I throw my changeup and they ask me how I throw, I'm like, I don't know. It just comes out the back of my hand. And it's not the way that other pitchers throw it out of the back of their hand either. So it's just, it's interesting because I feel like some of my mechanics and some of the ways I throw pitches are not very conventional. So just having to learn how to like teach and tweak pitchers that way. It's not the way that I pitch it. It's not the way that I do things is how I'm going to like help them out that way.
How would you describe your coaching style? I'm curious. What is your style of coaching, and how different is it from when you were a player? Like as far as personality wise, or just style. What is your style like going to be like as a pitching coach?
That's a great question. I think I'm still trying to figure that out. um, I know. So for me, like especially as being in college and then going through the pro realm by myself, I feel like having to play pro softball, especially like in Japan, where I didn't necessarily have a pitching coach to tweak my things. Like we had a bullpen coach that helped me out a lot, but I think I've had to like figure out like just different routines and workouts, and that's what's helped me become successful. I feel like I need a routine to help me out, and I need kind of like a program to help me out. And so that's what I've learned. What I've been trying to do with the pitchers is just putting them on a routine, putting them on a schedule, like a 5 week routine, I guess, that or 5 week workout plan that we'll do. And so I'll add a little bit of like the different cardios that I do with them or just different bullpen work that I'll do. And like, we'll do that for a little bit of time. And then that's usually we start getting into team practice after about a month of things. And so just trying to continue to just keep them on that routine, but get them stronger in that way. But on the other side of things, I try to keep things as simple as I can. And so I know sometimes with pitching, it could feel like it's so complicated out there. You're out there on the mound, you're thinking about 5 million things. And so when I'm in the bullpen working with them, I'm just trying to figure out what they're thinking about, when things go wrong or when things go right, and how we could simplify that. And so we could have those trigger words for them that they continue to tell themselves on the mound so that when we get to the games and things start feeling complicated, they could go back to those simple words and just to be able to simplify it out there so they could just go out there and just focus on competing.
What was it like when you got introduced to the players? What was that like? Did they have like were their eyes open? You said they've asked questions of you already. What was that like
Yeah.
when you first met them?
Well, I know, I mean, things had been so busy with how Sam was trying to get settled in, get her hiring process all figured out so she could go out to PGF. And she was trying to move from Utah to California herself. And then I was playing on the East Coast at the time. We were at New York playing against New York Rise. And so we weren't able to we wanted to do a Zoom, but we weren't able to do that. And so it was just, she introduced me via text, and then I got a few text messages from the girls, and then we met them in person a few weeks ago when they started school up. So, when I did meet them in person, it's funny because this is kind of the era, and I was starting to see that when I was at AUX too, where this is the era of girls where like when they first started watching softball or when they first started seeing it on TV, that was back in 2012, 2013, when Oklahoma was in the World Series and stuff. And so it's funny because I've gotten quite a few girls starting to say, like, oh, I have a picture of you when I first started playing. I have a picture of you. And they're like half my size. And it's funny because it's like, I remember when I first started playing with Pride and stuff. And it's like, oh, I have Natasha Watley's picture. I have Monica Abbott's picture. And so now it's like, oh, I'm starting to get to that age where these are the girls that were watching me when they first started playing. So it's cool because it's that NorCal tie with me growing up in NorCal. And so they grew up watching me like, oh, that picture in the World Series, from San Jose. And so it's cool to be able to come back to my roots and having these girls, they watched me and knowing that they had that connection.
Who was your favorite player growing up?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I loved all of the players. Let's see. Uh, I loved watching Monica and Kat, obviously, because they're both 6'2" lefties. I think those two for sure. I think with Monica, we had the same pitching coach growing up. And so I loved being able to watch her. And when I was watching her at the USA, I think she was still my favorite player. Yeah, probably those two. Yeah, or my sister. I loved watching her too.
That's pretty good. Good choices. Very good choices there. You mentioned you've played the last 2 seasons for the OKC Spark. What has that been like to be back in Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma, playing professionally this time with the OKC? You're not the only Sooner on the roster, spoiler alert. But what's that been like being back there?
It's been great. It's been a dream come true, really, because I think back when I was on Pride and we had so many Sooners on the team with Paige Parker, Lauren Chamberlain, Shelby Penley, Shane Knighton, and we always talked about like, wow, like they need a pro team in Oklahoma. That would just be amazing. And especially within the past 10 years with how just the fan base has just grown tremendously from the time I had graduated. And it just softball has been getting so much bigger and bigger every single year out there in Oklahoma. And so it's just been one of those things that we wish that there was a pro softball team. And they announced the team when I think I was about 4 months postpartum with my little baby, and I didn't necessarily retire. I never announced like a retirement, but I just didn't know what if I was going to play again. And when they announced that there's going to be a pro softball team in Oklahoma City, I was living in Norman at the time, and that, pun intended, that sparked my interest to want to play again. I'm like, okay, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to play here in Oklahoma City. This is amazing. And so last year with the inaugural season, we had an incredible turnout. It was just awesome for a first year team. I'm just seeing how many fans came out. And I know like some of our games where we didn't have so many fans, it was still more than what we were getting sometimes in Kissimmee or in Ohio at times when we had bigger fans. And so it was incredible to see the fans to continue to come and to be able to just have those regular fans coming back to every single game already within the first season was awesome. And so to be able to have it this year, we weren't in a league this year. We were playing independently, but we still had such a great fan base coming out. And, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I want to continue to keep playing out there is just they just love softball out there in Oklahoma, and they're going to keep showing out and keep supporting the sport out there. And so it's really cool to be able to play in front of those fans a decade after I graduated.
It just makes too much sense. How do you not have a pro team there, right? I mean, that's
Mhm.
I mean, I've been there a couple times up there, and it's just it's treated like football in a lot of ways with the media coverage and everything. Like it's just kind of out of this world. You mentioned you keep playing. That's one of the reasons why you keep playing. Where does that inspiration come from of continuing to play? Because you've accomplished just about everything in this sport, so you could easily say, "Hey, I've done my time. I'm good," but you still enjoy this clearly. But what drives you moving to continue?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely changed throughout the years. And I know a big piece when I first started pro softball was reaching for those 2020 Olympics and really trying to play until then. And then just kind of figuring out afterwards. And so I think now, obviously, like post 2020 Olympics, I have a baby and or I have a toddler now, and I'm still playing. I think that's one thing that continues to drive me is to be able to show that like that you're capable to play still as a mom. And I think that's one thing that especially in our sport where it's like, okay, I'll play until I'm ready to have kids. And I think that's the trend, obviously so, because it's so hard to do and you need that support. And I've been lucky to be able to have the support the past 2 seasons to continue to play. And I think having the support is huge, but just being able to have that drive as well. And I have always prided myself on my work ethic, and I felt like, I could still do this while having a kid, and just to be able to kind of be a figure in our sport too, along with, Kelsey Stewart Hunter. She has 2 kids and she's still playing. And so, we see that in other sports in the WNBA and the soccer leagues, where, moms are still playing. And I just want to be able to show that like you're able to do that. We don't have to just think about settling down for a normal job just because we had a kid. It is hard, but if you have the right support system, you're able to do it.
Do you allow yourself maybe a little bit? I know it's so far away. You've said earlier you take it year by year, but is there a part of you that allows yourself to think, 2028 Olympics? That's something that would be pretty cool, especially with as of now, and who knows if this will change, but as of now, the plan would be for that to be held in Oklahoma City in that same facility. Is there a part of you that allows you to think about that, or is that too far away?
Yeah, I mean, I think with how, like I said, when I first started my pro career, I think that was one of the things. It's like we were all so focused on 2020, and in a way, I feel like that kind of added some pressure and some like mental stresses in a way. And so I think that almost like drained me, I guess, with having to think so far in advance, looking towards the 2020 Olympics. And so I know just now, like my perspective is a lot different. Like I said, just trying to think about my family and just if I'm capable of continuing to play this next summer. And so I haven't really thought about 2028. I really just thinking about like, okay, can I play this summer? All right, yeah, let's give it a go. And then just taking it year by year that way. And so, yeah, I haven't really thought about it.
Fair. That's probably the smart thing to do, right? Take it the time of the deal. How would you describe that time period around the Olympics? It's so unique. No other athletes may ever experience something like that. At least we hope not, with the pandemic and everything like that, and the interruptions and all that. How would you describe it now, looking back on it?
Um, it was tough. It was very, very tough. And I think especially having to go through it in 2020, we were going through our Olympic tour at the time, and then with it just halting. And that was like one of those things where, like I said, we were really like everyone was looking forward to the 2020 Olympics and looking towards that for about 8 to 10 years, some girls. And it was like, okay, this is our time, 2020, this is our year. And then for everything to just be shut down with the pandemic, and it's like, is there even going to be an Olympics? And just having to go through those months of not knowing if there is going to be Olympics, but still training as if we were Olympic athletes and not knowing what the end goal was. That was tough. And then when they announced that it was going to be delayed until 2021, and it's just like, okay, well, having to go through it again, like let's start the tour up again and go through it with the COVID, with the mask, having to train with mask on and go through all the testings and isolations, with not even knowing if Japan's going to have an Olympics, because Japan was just, I feel like they just took COVID precautions higher than a lot of other countries, especially the United States, because I was still playing with the pro team in Japan. And so I signed with another pro team in Japan in 2020, but I wasn't able to actually get into the country until 2 weeks left of season. So I only played for one weekend that season. And then I ended up going back there for 2021, just for it to kind of help me stay in shape and prepare for the Olympics. And then having to go through that process with not even knowing if we were allowed to even be in the Olympics, or if Japan was still going to hold it, with all of that stuff. And then with it going through with the we get to Japan in July, and I know, so for Hannah Flippin, Taylor Edwards, and myself, we were reserve players, alternates at the time. And so then they told us that we weren't even going to be allowed to be in the stands and be there with the team. That was tough on us three because, we had been there and been through the journey with everyone and been through the grind, and then to not be there to support our teammates was really sad. And so, yes, it was an emotional roller coaster, that's for sure. And so it was a tough time. And then, obviously with the US getting the silver medal, it was tough, but it was also so rewarding as well, just to be able to go through that all and just to be able to see softball at that stage, at the highest stage, but then with it not having any fans, that it was just such a mix of emotions.
It
I don't know.
really is. It
It's
really.
hard to describe what the emotions were like.
No, I bet, because you feel like, man, this is not the true Olympics. You got the fans. You wouldn't even, like you said. I remember that. That was like a big. I remember when I heard that, I couldn't believe it. You weren't allowed to be in the. It was just kind of a wild time, and yet that's something you're probably going to be able to tell your daughter like 20, 30 years from now. Not many people. That's a bond, and that's going to be a bond that you are going to have with that group that no other team really has, just because of all the adversity that you all dealt with from that standpoint.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was a special group. We definitely went through a lot together, and we had so much fun together as well. It was a lot of fun to be able to have those connections with that whole group, with all of those girls.
Now, as we talk, we're recording this on Friday. It's the day that Oklahoma is going to unveil Patty Gasso's statue there. What's your reaction to that? To Patty getting honored with the statue? How do you think she feels about it?
I feel like she's probably so embarrassed about it. She's like, no, they need a statue of someone else, not me. But it's amazing. I think it's just so amazing for for the University of Oklahoma to be able to support something like this, but also this is just awesome for our sport. I know, like when Dawn Staley got her statue, I thought that was amazing for women's sports. And so to be able to have Coach Gasso, just to be able to have a softball figure, have a statue, that's awesome. And for it to be my own coach is even better. She absolutely deserves a statue. She's just been amazing to see how she's been able to continue to grow that program, from 2000 to 2013, and just to get it stronger and stronger. And I know our sport has just gotten stronger and stronger throughout the years, with all the additions of just with the money and the technology and everything with our sport, with all the teams all across the country getting stronger and stronger. And the fact that she's just continued to dominate throughout these years has just been so amazing. And she's just a legend, and it's awesome to be able to have a statue of her now, to be able to just have that figure there for us to be able to see.
Have you been able to check out Love Field yet, in person or no?
Yes, I went to a few games there, and it's amazing. Have you been there?
Not yet in person. I did cover the Big 12 tournament. I told Coach Gasso, like, you gotta show me the tour the next time I'm in the States. He's like, you got it there, but they were
I
still,
know.
at the time they were still kind of moving stuff. She was telling me
Yeah.
from Hines, which was kind of wild. They were still kind of moving stuff.
Yeah, because actually I never really got a tour until because yeah, it wasn't fully done. And so when it was fully done, like I was asking her husband, excuse me. So, I was asking her husband for a tour because it's funny because we would call where all the families sit, people would call it like Patty's patio, but we call her husband's nickname is Poppy. So we just call it Poppy's patio because, he kind of runs things there. So I was asking him for a tour, and he was like, we don't even have access yet. Like they aren't giving the coaches full access because it's not technically theirs yet, since the field's not done. And so it was hard for me to get a tour. And then when they had the SEC Media Day, the field was open to fans. And so I was heading to the football stadium for an interview, like with Haley McClenny, over at
Oh, that's
SEC.
right. Yeah, you were part of all
Yeah.
that. So
And
I
so
forgot. Yeah.
I was driving and I stopped at Love's Field. I'm like, oh, it's open. And so I just walked in with the fans and I got my little tour then. And people were just looking at me like, you haven't seen this yet? I'm like, no, this is the first time I've seen it open. And so it was cool to be able to kind of get that tour. But even just to have a game there, oh man, I know people have their MLB stadium bucket list, and that's absolutely a bucket list place that softball fans need to see. it's just, it looks like an MLB field. That's the best way to describe it. It feels like an MLB field. You have tunnels like going into the dugout, going into the bullpen, which, having tunnels in a softball field, it's crazy to think about. So, I know we were getting the tour back in October when we had our 10-year reunion of our 2013 national championship team. Patty Gasso was taking us through a tour, and they were still building at the time, but she was taking us through like the hallways, and we were going through the hallways. There's one huge hallway and there's a bunch of little hallways. And I'm just looking, I'm like, this one little hallway is bigger than the hallway they had at Merida. There wasn't even a hallway at Merida Heinz Field. So it's really cool to just to see obviously Merida Heinz Field has been so legendary and it is such a special and beautiful place, but to see how OU softball has been able to just earn this new field and see the support to get this new field and get this new stadium has been great. And it's only gonna make the stadiums around our country even better. Just especially with SEC coming up, when those SEC coaches start coming into Love's Field, I'm like, okay, I could see what I want to add at our field. I could see what I want to add here. So
Yeah.
I was teasing my sister when I first went to a game there. I saw it and I texted her. I was like, you need to get in one of her tournaments. You need to come play here, because I guess Coach Gasso was trying to get her on the schedule for Love's Field, like their opening tournament, the one that Miami, Ohio was in ULL.
Yeah.
And my sister is just like, no, like, we're not coming to play you that opening weekend. Like, we will play you. Like, she always finds her way to play Mississippi State. And so I texted my sister. I was like, "You need to come to play here." And she's like, "Don't worry, we'll be there for SEC when we play in Norman for when we play them in the SEC this year." So she'll have her time there.
But she's right. In fairness, in her defense, she is right, because now
Yeah, she'll have plenty
Oklahoma.
of games there.
I was gonna say Oklahoma's now in the SEC starting this year. First of all, how strange is that for you to kind of wrap around the fact that Oklahoma is no longer in the Big 12, which, I mean, you hold still a lot of records in the Big 12. They're now in the SEC, and number two, your alma mater and your sister are going to be facing each other at some points during in the same conference.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I think in a way it is sad seeing all the conferences, all the changes in the conferences for Division One. It's sad to see, but I mean, Big 12, there's just so much history with the Big 12 and OU. And I know even when I was at my first 2 years, we had Nebraska, Missouri, A&M. They were all in our conference, and it was a tough conference at the time. And I know with softball wise, I guess with Big 12, with all the teams leaving, it was just kind of going down a little bit. But the past few years, Big 12 has definitely gotten stronger with, with OSU getting stronger and Texas getting stronger. So it's sad to see them leaving on this mark, but it'll be cool to see them going against the SEC teams, because as we see in postseason, with majority of the teams in that conference going to postseason. And so, it's just another challenge for OU. And I know Coach Gasso, she loves to be able to bring as much challenges as she can to her team. And so they're going to be getting that every weekend in the SEC. And so it's going to be exciting to see how they go through, especially this first year with the amazing senior class that they lost, just to see them transitioning to the SEC that way. I think this is probably the best way to be able to bounce back when you're losing that kind of senior class, to be able to make your team that much stronger with having those challenges in the SEC.
I just looked it up. April 18th through the 20th, they announced the SEC schedule earlier this week. Mississippi State goes to Oklahoma that weekend. So I'm assuming you'll have a series, probably a West Coast Conference series at that point you'll be at, but I'm sure your phone will be keeping tabs on those scores in a family battle there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that'll be exciting. I'm so glad that Sam will have that opportunity to go play in that field. It's amazing. Just, I mean, seeing the alumni come back that have that chance to be able to come play. And I know even with Coach Lombardi, how they got to play there for regionals, that was really cool to be able to see.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. That kind of worked out from a storybook standpoint. And Samantha, she's done a great job, led Mississippi State a couple of years ago to the Super Regionals. They got some good facilities themselves that she's kind of, as a result, that they're building around there as well. What's it been like following her and her success at Mississippi State? I know you were on the staff, as a volunteer there, but to see that success where she got to a super regional a couple years ago. Never forget that run where she won the Tallahassee regional and got to host the supers against Arizona. What has it been like to be a sister supporting of her and her success?
Yeah, it's been so amazing to see what she's done there and just to be able to, kind of see her journey there as an assistant coach and then continue to just help grow that program. I know they've they've always kind of been at the bottom of the SEC, but she's helped them, um kind of just be a challenging team there. And they have their upsets. It's cool that they're always going to have those random upsets with the bigger teams. And so I think they're not afraid of the bigger teams. They're not afraid of the teams that are supposed to win. And so that's been cool to see all of our teams kind of buy into that. And I think that was a big reason why when they went in and they won that Tallahassee regional, it's like, okay, yeah, we're not supposed to win, but they had nothing to lose. And they just to be able to see their team culture, just to be able to like everyone buying into each other and being able to have each other's back, it's really cool to see in our sport. And I think that's what makes our sport so special, is that the game doesn't know who's supposed to win. And I love that her team really takes that mentality on and is able to just grow from that. And they had a great season this past year. They had a really strong start. And so I was actually that we were there at the Stanford regional when they lost to Stanford, and but they had a really good run. And they had a really young, strong team this past year, and they have a really strong class coming in. And so it's been cool to be able to see what Taryn and Bratton have been able to do, helping her with her support staff and being able to bring those recruits in and being able to just continue to grow and be a challenging team in the SEC.
How much of your sister, because you got to see her coach up close, you obviously know her as well as anybody, how much of her style is in your style of coaching? How much of Patty Gasso style is in if you applied in your style? How much of Missy Lombardi? Because I would imagine those three people in particular, and there's others I'm sure, but those three have had a big influence in you.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could emulate a little bit half of what all of those coaches have been able to do. All three of them are just such successful head coaches. I mean, I'm not sure yet. I think, especially with, I don't know if I really see myself as a head coach, but I like being an assistant. I like being like in the support system right now. And yeah, I think me and Sam are probably the most similar, obviously, just being siblings and stuff. And um, with Coach Lombardi, she was an amazing pitch caller. She was amazing with being able to work on it. I know like I have learned a lot from her and just like some of her bullpen work and trying to like emulate that into my bullpens with my pitchers. But yeah, I'm not sure about Coach Gassa. I don't know how similar we are.
Just yeah, it just happens. There's going to be a moment because I've had this happen where I've had talked to other people. There's going to be a moment probably where you're coaching your players and you're going to realize, oh, so that's what Coach Gasso meant when she told me that back in the day. That's going to happen to you. You do realize that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's especially with the grades, with all the grade checks. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting like it's all coming back to me. It was like me giving a headache to my coaches about certain things. It's like, yep, that's what's happening.
Correct. You mentioned that back in October of 23 that they brought back the 13 team, the 10-year anniversary. They
Yes.
celebrated that team. What was that like? Because I think I told you this when we spoke in Clearwater years ago. I felt that was the best team I ever saw, was that 2013 team. And I'm getting grief for it now because there's a lot of, as you mentioned, the Sooner Nation has grown,
Oh,
and
yes.
especially in the last handful of years during this dynastic run, which I give you all credit because y'all started that dynastic run in 13, but there's a lot of people pushing for the last few years, and rightfully so. The
Oh,
last
yes,
few years, those
absolutely.
teams have a legitimate case there, but I've been a defender of the 13 group, just for the record.
Wow. Thank
Uh,
you so
so I
much.
got your
Yes.
back. But what was it like to be reunited 10 years later?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was such a special weekend for us. And Jackie Livingston, their director of ops, she's just amazing. She runs the show there down in Norman for the OU softball program, but she did an amazing job being able to host us. They gave us amazing gifts to be able to like remember the weekend, and we were able to go to a football game, and they honored us at the football game, and we were able to just We got to have like I think we had a slow pitch game with the current team, and then the recruits that are incoming freshmen right now, they were there as well. So it was a busy weekend. There's a lot of people around the fields, and so they made it work for us. But it was special for us to be able to see a few of us that we all have little girls now, and we are all able to have them reunite all these little toddlers running around the field. And so it was really special to be able to have that weekend that they were able to bring us back and to be able to honor us in that way.
What's the memory that when you think back to that year and that national championship? What's the first thing that pops in your mind?
Oh, I think of Michelle pitching, and so Michelle and I, we were both seniors, and throughout all four of our years in postseason, I started every single game, and I was always going to get the ball. But I mean, props to Michelle, like being able to stick it out. I mean, especially now in this era, you don't really see the number two pitcher sticking it out like that. But she held our pitching staff together, and she got stronger and got better as a pitcher every single year. And she was just the ultimate teammate, and she was just so selfless in that way. We never had issues on the staff. She's still one of my best friends till this day. And I know so game two of the national championship game my senior year, I think we, like us as players, we all kind of were thinking it because she had such a successful year that our senior year. She beat a lot of ranked teams. And in our heads we were thinking, like, I think I was thinking it to myself, Jess was thinking it to herself, Jess Schultz and Michelle. I mean, it's like, okay, well, like how it had been going this year, Keilani throws game one, Michelle throws game two, and then Keilani throws game three. But in postseason, all 4 years, it was always Keilani, like every single game. And so that was where they brought us to meet after game one when we'd won it. And then they told us, they sat us three down. They're like, we're giving Michelle the ball for game two. And I felt like just a sense of relief. And I'm just like, yes, like, okay, like, yes, thank you. Cause I mean, that's what had been working for us all year long. And that was the smart thing to do. And I think, I don't know if Tennessee was really expecting that because it had always been me, but I mean, she pitched unbelievable that game. And just, I mean, she pitched better than I would have pitched. I mean, they would have seen me because they had just seen me after 11 innings or 11, I don't know how many innings the game went, but I mean, and obviously I really only throw about 2 to 3 pitches of around the same area. And so it was just the smart thing to do. And she had her best stuff that game. And so that was definitely a highlight of that series, to be able to see her just do her thing and just being able to give her moment to shine. She was always kind of in the back, just being the supportive teammate, but she held us together, and she was a big reason why we had those successes all 4 years.
Well, and that would foreshadow where the game would be headed because you mentioned it back then. I was like, whoa, that's a big story. Keilani's not starting, but if that happened now, it'll be like, oh, of course he's not
Oh
pitching,
yeah,
right? Like it's so
absolutely. Yeah,
wild.
and I think that might have been a big change for them as a coaching staff too, because they had been so used to, like, okay, this is our main pitcher. We're always going to start them for postseason. And yeah, you always, that's what you always saw back then. It was Blair Luna pitching every single game, Danielle Laurie pitching every single game. And so the game has definitely changed. And I mean, you see it now when OU's playing in their national championships, they don't always start the same pitcher every
No,
game.
they went
She
by committee. They went by committee in game two after Kelly
Yeah,
Maxwell started
I
game one. They
mean,
went by
and the year
committee.
before they did that, and
Yeah,
I think it's so funny because you'll see it on Twitter. You hear the fans going like, "What is she doing? Why is she pitching this girl?" But she knows what she's doing. She's clearly has enough rings to show it.
very fairly so. Is that something you think you will apply to your pitching staff? Where, hey, we're a staff. We're gonna throw different arms. That's the best way to be successful. Is it based on what you inherit? And I'm sure that story you just told about you and Michelle, that's a story you'll probably share with your players about being a team player on a pitching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just nowadays, how I talked about the technology, there's just so much data out there, so much video out there. And so it really is hard to just ride that one pitcher. And so, I think just to be able to pitch by committee, you're going to need that. Even if you do have that one workhorse pitcher that's going to be able to go out there and dominate, you're going to need to prepare all of your pitchers, because there's going to be that one team that's going to be able to hit her well, or there's going to be a few teams that are going to be able to hit her well. So you just have to be prepared to have your whole staff ready to go all the time.
Have you asked Michelle for advice as somebody who's been a long time now pitching coach successful at Northwestern? Do you pick her brain?
Oh, all the time. Yes. I've been texting her quite a bit the last week or so, especially well, with it being that I'm like, this is my first like full-time coaching position with D1. And so
Sure.
just the different, like I never really like the compliance stuff, like all the new compliance rules, like which it's way different from when I was on the staffs back with OU in 2019 and back when even when we were playing. And so I'll text her or call her every once in a while. I texted and called her quite a bit this past week trying to ask her the different rules.
Smart, smart. No, I'm glad to hear that. Now let me pump you up before I let you go because you're like my favorite Sooner. With all apologies to Jessica
Wow.
Schultz. Sorry,
Well,
Jessica. I love Jessica. One of my favorite people I got to meet and get to know as a friend. But I mean, you had the most wins and strikeouts in OU softball history. You have won over 100 games, over 1,000 strikeouts. You hit over 50 home runs in your career as a two-way player. Two-time National Player of the Year. There's only been four other players that have won it two times or more. I don't know if you want to guess who the others are offhand.
Aloe, Kat
Yeah,
Osterman,
yeah.
Monica, Lisa,
No,
Rachel.
no. Well, you got almost. You're close. So Kat three times.
Yes.
Jocelyn, the most recent, did it two times. Rachel Garcia two times. Danielle Laurie two times.
Yes, Danielle Laurie.
Those are that's good company you're keeping there.
It is good company, yes.
You're
I
also the
think I've
first
gotten
Sooner,
to
by
play
the way,
with
to be
all
a
of them, actually.
you did.
I've gotten to play with all of them.
That's
Yeah,
pretty good. Ooh.
that is pretty cool.
That's a pretty good. That's good. That's a good stat right there. You're the first, also four-time All-American in Oklahoma history. I know people kind of. I just only bring all that up because now it seems like people take some to some extent take that for granted with the success. But I mean, you're
Yeah.
right there. You're in the conversation for the goat over there, in my opinion.
Oh man.
Have you reflected on that time at OU as a player?
Um, yes, I have. I guess especially like when I first graduated and, like being able to have the opportunity to go to the ESPYs and go to the Honda Awards and getting those awards. But it's, I think what's been really cool is to be able to see that the impact that like our class made and our winning the national championship that team made, to be able to see the program get stronger and stronger and stronger after that. And so it's really cool to be able to see the current Sooners and even like the past few years, all of their successes. And I love that Coach Gasso, she always wants to make sure like we know our past and like we know the history of the OU softball program. And so we feel so connected to alums that come and visit, and even like the 2000 team that set the stage for us. And so it's cool to be able to, when they do win these national championships, when they do win these national player of the year and all-American awards, we feel like we're connected to them in that way because of what Coach Gasso has done there. But I think of, especially with them continue to stack up, getting some of the greatest recruits in the country and being able to see them choose OU. It's so special. And, we feel like we're able to have that connection with them still.
And so my last question, to kind of take it all full circle now, as you are in your first year as pitching coach here and assistant at Pacific, how do you apply that championship mindset, everything you learn from Oklahoma, and apply that to your players now at Pacific as you get to know them? They get to know you now this fall. I know that's where it begins. But how do you apply that and to bring that, bring success there to Pacific and raise the bar, if you will?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, like I said, being able to see her teams the past few years and seeing their championship mindset and how much, what we emulated with the championship mindset, and seeing that get stronger and stronger, um, I, I think it's been amazing to be able to learn from the OU softball program, and trying to apply that to our team is just to be able to go out there and treat every single day like you're playing for a championship, treat every practice like it, every bullpen like you're training for a championship. The championship game is today or it's tomorrow, and we've got to train like champions right now. And so being able to bring that to the program, I think that's going to be really big, and to just to help our girls to just work for that championship and work hard every day for it.
You're gonna be throwing batting practice from time to time. Stay a part of the training.
I think so. I haven't yet. Miranda's throwing a great BP right now. Miranda
Okay.
Rodriguez, our other assistant. But I know I will be back there throwing BP. And, as I start getting closer to season, I'll probably start going in and taking some live from some of the pitchers. So I know that's going to be nice for me to be able to have hitters to be able to throw live too. So that'll be good if I'm able to do that.
It's gonna be pretty cool for them until they realize, shoot, she's not taking me. She's not going easy on me. Then they may not enjoy that as well. But you mentioned Miranda; she joins the staff. How that'll be? You're all gonna also kind of getting used to knowing each other as well and working together.
Yes, yeah, we all really this is the first time we've all met. And so Miranda, she's from Elk Grove, about an hour down the road, so it's like bringing her back home too. And so I think so far, I mean, obviously season, it starts to, challenge everyone's team camaraderie and stuff, but so far it's going good. And so far I think we are a good balance. Miranda, she's so organized and she pays so much attention to detail. So that's a good balance for me because I am not that way. And she's showing me these spreadsheets and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. How did you do this? So yeah, it's been great. We've had a great connection so far. And so just getting to know each other, we're still having to do that. And so but it's been really cool to be able to work with them. I think we all three will be a good balance to each other for the staff.
That's good. See, that's always the beauty. Compliment each other. That's a good sign.
Mhm.
There. Hey, well, I'm super happy to hear that. I'm happy that you're back in the collegiate game, involved in it. It's off the sports bet. The collegiate game is better for it. Glad you're still going to continue to play as well. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I know it's busy. You're still adjusting to things as you're in this journey, but thanks for telling us your story and telling us having a few minutes here to talk to us here on In the Circle and D1 Softball. Definitely have you back on down the road, but in the meantime, good luck this fall and beyond, and we'll be following you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.